Very soon, gaming stores around the world will be receiving their first shipments of Cyberpunk TCG product, and many of them will be hosting the first wide-scale event for the game. The beta pre-release events set to take place between the 10th through the 20th of September are quickly approaching, and I wanted to make a video talking about the upcoming event and give advice on how best to prepare to give you an edge against your competition, as well as covering a few things for newcomers to the game to help clarify some questions you may have or encounter when playing with other new players. Now, there was a recent blog post from WeirdCo with similar information, and I'm sure plenty of other creators out there are doing a very similar video to this, so I'll be parroting a little bit of that information but adding my own take on a few things. Now for this video, I'm breaking it down into a few chapters to keep things easier to reference if you wanted to come back to this video around the beta event. I'm going to first briefly talk about the contents of the beta kit you'll be receiving at the event. I'm then going to offer some advice on deck construction for the beta pre-release event to give you the best chance of walking away as victor of your LGS. After that, I'm going to cover a few important rules and interactions to remember for folks who are playing this for the very first time to help you hit the ground running in your local scene. I hope you find some good use out of this video, and if you do and it ends up working out well for you at your beta event, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear back from other players in this game. Now with all that out of the way, let's take a look at what to expect in your beta pre-release event kit. At your designated store, you'll be receiving one of these beta event kits, which will feature nice artwork of either male or female V Street Kid, as well as the logo for the Set 1 release, Welcome to Night City. Inside this kit, you'll receive 6 Welcome to Night City beta booster packs, a 3-card Legend booster pack containing 3 randomized cards from a pool of 10 different legends to assist in deck construction, the Mantis Blades beta promo card, and a full playset of Cyberpunk TCG dice. Nearly everything you need to play the game. The only recommended things to take with you are some sleeves of some sort for your new cards, and a playmat to keep them nice and clean. For the event, players will construct a deck from the cards contained in their respective beta kits. The deck must contain a minimum of 30 cards and will also require 3 legend cards to lead your deck, so in total, you need 33 cards at minimum. Let's talk about the booster packs really quick and what to expect inside of them. Now they've stated in the Kickstarter that booster packs will contain the following: 12 cards total, 7 common, 3 uncommon, and 2 rare cards, which will be a mix of rare, epic rare, secret rare, and iconic rares, which are essentially the alt art versions of the other cards in the set. So you'll have approximately 76 cards in your kit to work with in constructing your 33 card deck. This number includes the Mantis Blades promo and the 3 randomized legends you get as well. Now, speaking of legends, you can also pull them from packs, so don't think you'll be stuck with whatever 3 you randomly pull in that legend pack inside the kit. It is extremely unlikely you'll walk away without pulling some extra legends from any of the packs that you open in the kit. Now, like in many sealed formats, creating a deck with a strong and cohesive strategy can prove to be a difficult endeavor, as it's highly RNG dependent, and having to build your deck based on your 3 legends color identities and RAM requirements makes it even more of a challenge. The sealed formats do not use RAM rules at all to allow participants to have an easier time in deck construction. So instead of building your deck based around the colors and RAM amounts of your legends, you instead can choose 3 colors and build your deck with those. These do not have to match the colors of your chosen legends. Just keep that in mind. Now, in this segment, I like to give a few deck construction tips to help give new players a better chance at performing well in the event. If you've been playtesting for a while now, these tips will already be known to you, but hopefully you'll find some useful information here as well. WeirdCo has included some tips as well in their blog post, which is great to see, and a lot of what I'm going to say is going to expand and might be slightly different than their tips. But yeah, let's get into it. Deck construction tip number 1, pick statistically powerful units for your deck. Card pools will be limited in this format, so that means there'll be fewer gear cards available to players to use to buff up their weaker units, so you'll want to focus around fielding units that have big stat blocks naturally. There are a good number of early to mid-game units that are incredibly powerful and will prove to be a major threat to your opponent the second they hit the field, Animal's Wrecker being chief among them. Simpler strategies work well in formats with limited card pools, and there's not a strategy that's more simple than playing big units and making big swings with very minimal effort on your end. Tip number 2, try to get roughly 60% of your deck to contain sellable cards. Now for new players, you'll notice the eddy symbol in the upper left corner of cards that can be sold for eddies. Once per turn, you can decide to sell one of these eligible cards by revealing it to your opponent and placing it face down in your eddy area for the rest of the game. This card is effectively turned into a resource to spend to play your other cards, like lands and magic. Not every card is sellable, so make note of that when looking through your cards to construct your deck. In testing, many players have found that the amount of cards in your deck that should be sellable should be about 60% roughly. In this case, 18 of the 30 cards that you're going to play should be sellable if you can make that work. This will be a good balance to aim for, as you will have fewer games where you are unable to sell a card every turn for an eddy to stay on the mana curve, so to speak. Having a larger amount of your deck contain sellable cards also will give you better chances to sell the right cards, i.e. cards that aren't particularly useful in your given matchup or the stage of the game you're in. Many decks are centered around specific sellable cards, and having to waste those powerful cards by selling them for a resource can cost you a game. To circumvent this, many decks have some filler cards that are sellable that still have decent effects that you can use in a pinch, but these cards usually are used to be sold to keep your valuable sellable cards in hand, which is why many decks will contain a higher ratio of resource cards than other TCGs out there. I know the blog post Weirco put out said to shoot for about having a 50-50 split between non-sellable and sellable cards, but I think going a little bit higher up to 60% is better because it'll give you a bigger buffer if you manage to pull plenty of sellable cards in your packs. If you don't, well, I guess you could just scoop and go home. I don't know. Alright, tip number 3, build on the curve. So if you're familiar with games that require a resource system that increases over time, you'll generally want to put cards of varying costs within your deck. Some cheap but weak, and some expensive but powerful. Given this game has a maximum number of turns it can possibly have, you want to make the most out of every single turn in this game. So leaving eddies unspent every turn is highly inefficient, and you will likely lose games more often if you're not able to make use of all your resources when you can. So try to find a good even balance between cheaper and more expensive cards to play in your deck. That way you're getting the absolute most out of every turn in the game. Tip number 4, and this is a big one, you need blockers in your deck. Blockers are essential in any deck you're going to construct. If you do not use blockers and your opponent does, you're gonna probably lose the game. Preventing key units from being defeated in combat, or preventing gigs from being stolen by diverting the attack to a blocker is paramount, and you should aim to have, I would probably say, maybe 5-6 cards in your deck with blocker for the event, if you can. You don't need to dip too heavily into it, but you definitely want options there. Tip number 5, removal. There is a lot of removal in the game, and playing a format that doesn't care about the RAM restrictions for cards means you'll be able to play removal cards that you otherwise wouldn't be able to play. Because you're not likely to pull full playsets of several of these best removal cards in the game, it's not a bad idea to make your 3 color choices for your deck be centered around which colors you have the most removal options in. Some of these cards are tougher to use without some synergy in your deck, but many of these are also very, very powerful auto-includes in the format, as they require very little setup to get off. Alright, so in this chapter of the video, I'm going to be talking about a few important rules to remember as a new player, and some interactions that are important to understand when you're playing, so that way it'll help clear up any confusion you might have if you're playing against another new player who has no idea what's going on, so you're not sitting around waiting for a judge or something like that to make a decision for you. Alright, so the number 1 thing is you can only call 1 legend per turn, period. If you spend an eddy to call one of your legends at the start of your turn, and then play another card later on in the turn that gives you the ability to call a legend after meeting a specific requirement, you cannot do so if you've already called one this turn, so keep that in mind. You can get your legends active quicker by spending an eddy to call a legend once in response to an attack being made by your rival, but that's it. Number 2, response timing. There are several important things to understand when it comes to declaring attacks and how ability timing triggers work. You'll have a handy card with rules that detail this, but I wanted to highlight a few important interaction and timing rules that the rules card does not cover. First, when an attack is declared, if the card has an attack keyword, the effect of the card is carried out first before anything else happens. This effect cannot be interrupted. Then, after the attack trigger is completed, the attacking player chooses the target for the attack. So before a target for the attack can be declared or redirected, the attack trigger resolves first. Second, many cards in this game have the quick keyword. This keyword allows it to be played in response to an attack. You can play these cards naturally during your turn before or after a fight has taken place, but the only time these cards are able to be used in response to an attack is when they're played by the defending player only. When player A attacks player B can respond by spending eddies to play a card or activate an ability with the quick keyword. Player B can play as many quick effects as they want to before the fight commences, provided of course player B has enough resources to pay for these cards' effects. Once the card is played, its effect is resolved immediately, and any subsequent effects then take place in whichever order player B chooses. The big takeaway here is that the attacking player cannot play cards or activate abilities with the quick keyword during the fight phase at all. Keep that in mind. Alright, number 3, the stack. So number 3 was touched on just a moment ago, but I wanted to give it its own point here because it's important to remember. There is no stack in this game. You cannot play a card or activate an ability in response to another effect in order to subvert that card. When an ability is activated or a card is played, that ability resolves before anything else happens. If multiple triggers happen at the same time, the player may choose the order in which those effects take place, but that's it. Number 4 is a pretty advanced strategy, but a very effective one, and that's chaining blocks. So I made a video about this one that I'll link to here, so I won't dive deep into it in this video. I suggest watching that to get a better understanding of this, but in short, you can redirect the same attack several times with different blocker units you have if you wished. Why would you do this? Well, watch my video and you'll see why. In regards to rulings for cards, there are several cards in the game that do not explicitly state they target a unit. However, they do target a unit. In particular, I'm talking about Reboot Optics and the Evelyn Legend, where they mention the next time a rival unit fights this turn. For Reboot Optics case, that is requiring you to select a target. It's not just a blanket statement where it applies to any unit, you have to select the actual unit. And as for the Evelyn Legend that forces a unit to fight, you have to actually target a specific unit for that. Even though it doesn't explicitly state it, that's how the ambiguous wording of these cards works. Okay. Well, as I sit here reviewing this script, I can see it's formed into quite a little essay. I appreciate you for making it this far, and I hope you've gotten some useful information from this video. If you're newer to the game, or you just like watching gameplay videos, I'd highly recommend you check out a few episodes of my Afterlife Card Club series, where we feature live gameplay. It's both entertaining and educational. As always, thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you all soon in the next video. Goodbye, and good luck to you and your beta events. I'll see you there.